What's going on, y'all? Welcome to the Home and Away podcast on the No Ceilings NBA Draft podcast feed. My name's Corey Tulliba. I'm your host today for this week's episode. As you know, on the Home and Away podcast, we have a home. Usually we have an away. Today, it's actually kind of an away for me because my Wi-Fi is not working and I am at my parents' house in my brother's room. Truly diving all into the away portion of this podcast. And we have the conductor of chaos at No Ceilings with us today, Tyler Rucker, on the line. First time caller, long time listener. My man, what's going on?
On the line, baby. No, I'm doing good, Corey. I will admit to everyone listening that when I saw your backdrop, I was like, okay, there's some questions. You're in a different room. I needed some answers. I was scared to get those answers, but now that you've told me the Wi-Fi situation, hat tip to you. You deliver. People want the podcast. You delivered. You found a way to pivot and make some stuff happen on the line. So I really appreciate that.
Well, look, you got to step up. You have to adapt. I'm using my GoPro camera today because I figured we got to get a little bit of practice because a little announcement for everybody. Your boys are going to be at the Nike Hoop Summit next week, I believe, in Portland, Oregon, which I'm super excited about. Myself, the Tylers, Albert, and we're going to be filming some content. And I got this new GoPro. So I figured test it out today, test run on the Home and Away podcast. So when we get to Portland, we could film the best content possible for, all of our loyal, listeners, subscribers, watchers, the gang.
It's going to be awesome. I mean, I've never even met Metcalf, so it's going to be pretty crazy. I've done like 50 podcast episodes with him, never even met the guy. So I'm excited about that. I'm really excited to be going with all you guys to Portland. It's my first time going to Portland, and we're going to see plenty of exciting hoops. The rosters got announced. They look fantastic, so I'm really, really intrigued. Plenty of Ronnie James coverage, I guess. I guess we can't escape it too long.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of Bronny stuff. I think maybe minimal from us, but we'll cover them. We're going to cover the whole gauntlet. But I'm already looking up on Yelp, like, the nice restaurants that we're going to hit. So it's going to be a really, really good time. Let's hope the weather is, agreeable with us. But tonight, because that's going to be future content, tonight for the Home and Away podcast, I'm going to do something different from what I normally do on this podcast feed. Normally, Albert and I on the Draft Act show, we go through one prospect per episode and we go really in depth with the scouting. But I decided that I was going to reach out on Twitter and I was going to have people who follow me have the opportunity to do a little Q&A and throw whatever questions they have about this draft our way. And us as the quote unquote draft experts, we're going to answer them, at least do our best. So let's get it started. Hot and heavy. We are going to start it off with a couple of guys that we've had a lot of internal discussion about. They're brothers. They play for the Overtime Elite. Daniel Mortensen III asks, favorite team fits for the Thompson twins? I'm starting to talk myself into Asar in Orlando. So what are your favorite fits for the Thompson twins?
First of all, shout out to everyone that submitted a question. Going through all the list of questions, I was like, oh my gosh, I love you guys. Like just pouring in the questions left and right. There's some really, really good ones too. But to answer Daniel's question, I'm right there with him. I think Asar to Orlando's probably warming up as one of my favorite places for him to end up. Gosh, man, Amen is such a fascinating one. We really have had a lot of internal discussion about the Thompson twins, some good, some bad, kind of all over the place. His favorite fit, I guess everyone's going to keep talking about San Antonio, and I really do think that would be an intriguing one, that if they believe in Amen specifically, that's a great place for him to go. What about you, Corey? What about off the top of your head? This is a tough one, because the more we go in depth throughout the cycle, I keep finding myself trying to convince myself with like the match with some teams, like, I don't know, Portland maybe, but there's also going to be some team that's just like, hey, there's too much talent. We're jumping all over it.
So I'm going to throw a little wild card at you for men. I don't know if you've been following the NBA at large lately, but the Dallas Mavericks are a late contender in the race to the bottom. What if the Dallas Mavericks, who are currently at the 10th pick, which means they keep their pick, it's top 10 protected, what if they jump up into the top 4? Let's say they get the 4th pick and Brandon Miller, Scoot, and Victor Wembanyama are all off the board, and Dallas says, I know that Luka is a guy who needs the ball in his hands. We need a little bit of athleticism on this team. We need somebody who's dynamic on this team. We need somebody that could take the ball out of Luka's hands a little bit, allow him to play off the ball, still young enough to grow with him. What if Amen Thompson ends up on the Dallas Mavericks?
It makes sense. The problem with all of this, and we love everybody in the draft community, and we don't want everyone to think we're Thompson haters, but you're going to get to a point with this lottery where things could get interesting of like, okay, where do we put Amen?
Yep.
Because like Indiana's at 7. I don't really see that making a lot of sense with all that backcourt they have. Maybe Utah. I don't know. Portland's also
I like Portland for this reason. Now, I don't know what's going on with Dame.
Yeah, I don't.
I
None of us do.
None of us do. I don't know what his intentions are. I think Portland will want to keep him for as long as he wants to be around. But if he eventually says, I'm ready to move on, and it might not be this year, we know them taking Shaedon Sharpe last year when there were a lot of questions, they're not afraid to, take a chance on somebody. So when I think of his fit with Dame, I think, all right, maybe not the best fit in the world. Dame can definitely play off ball. But in the long term, if you're building around Anthony Simons, Shaedon Sharpe, and Amen Thompson, it's a pretty good mix of guys who could play on or off the ball, at least for Simons and Sharpe, and just super dynamic and athletic. So that's kind of interesting. As far as Asar, I really think he would be interesting next to LaMelo as potentially another like wing scorer, but also a guy that is going to be put in position next to LaMelo, similarly to playing with Amen. Like he knows how to play off another guy who can dominate the ball. And then I think they need an influx of young athleticism at the wing spot. So I think he would be really interesting in Charlotte. But, it's not like they're always super clean. I mean, Orlando, I think Asar would be great at that 2 spot, because I do think people are underselling the fact that Fultz is probably like going to be a starter for them for a while, unless they move off and they trade him while he has some value. He's been playing really, really well. So I think Amen's a little bit trickier there, because I do think you want Paulo and Franz to have the ball in their hands. And I think we've mentioned this. Asar is probably a little bit more likely to translate early on. But those are, and for Amen, Washington.
Yeah.
I think him and Beal are weird, but interesting in the backcourt together. Him and potentially Johnny Davis, who's showing some signs of life. Shout out Metcalf. There are a lot of interesting spots for those guys. Maybe no perfect fits.
There's no perfect one, but there's a lot of spots like we're talking ourselves into it. We could see it. Dallas is the fun one because, Kyrie, obviously they got a decision to make this offseason.
Yeah.
And yeah, we do want Luka to have the ball, but what about getting some upside with the playmaking and the explosiveness and transition demon potentially? I still think Portland makes sense to me. I really do think it. But there's also going to be some teams that if you believe, you're going to have a shot to go up and get them, because some of those teams might be like, hey, we're at a point where, maybe Portland's picking 6th and Dallas is 10. Dallas is like, hey, we want to come up. And it's like, okay, well, make us an offer. And then maybe Dallas is buying into that. But I still think like Portland could be intriguing because we've seen how good Shaedon Sharpe looks right now. They're giving him an extended run. He's looked great throughout the season, and they got to think long-term. And a long-term idea of Shaedon Sharpe and Amen running the wings together, my goodness, that sounds really, really fun.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out. Let's move on to our next question.
Okay.
Josh Roberts at JJazz3 asks, and I'm excited about this question. Where you at on Sensiba?
Oh gosh, I didn't even make it 15 minutes in before we got Bryce Sensabaugh mania.
That's right.
Okay, so Corey's really high on Sensabaugh. Where do you have him right now? Let's spill the beans.
All right, I have him right now. Let me pull up the board. I have him at 9, but that I could talk myself into having him at 7 or 8 as well.
Okay, and who are you having him ahead of? Like, let's throw out some names just to get to the people of like how high you really are on him. Like some names that might shock people. Like, you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, Jet Howard, Jalen Hood-Scafino, Cason Wallace. I have him right ahead of Taylor Hendricks.
Which is a big one. Everyone might be like, "Whoa!"
Which is a big one. Who I have Taylor Hendricks at 10 right now, so I have Hendricks top 10, and I've been thinking to myself a lot, but I could talk myself into him over Cam Whitmore, and I could talk myself over him on Anthony Black as well. I think both of those guys have some question marks, but right now I have both of those guys slightly ahead. I think Cam showed a lot to close out the year. I don't love his context. I'm worried about the fact that his passing was like all-time non-existent this year, but having seen enough Villanova, including in person, it's not something I'm like fully worried about, although I do think context is going to be pretty dependent for those guys. What I like about Sensiba over those guys ahead is that I think he's going to fit into just about any kind of roster construction that you draft him into. I think he's shown some pretty unbelievable shot making on some just out of this world efficiency. But while he's so good on the ball, he's as good as a shooter off of it. He has a claim, in my opinion, to be, you could argue that he is the best shooter in this class. I would put Jordan Hawkins there, but there's an argument percentage-wise, efficiency-wise, that it's Sensabaugh. So I'm really high on him. I think he's got the, like, he has to get in better shape, and I think that's something that he will focus on. I think we're definitely going to see a picture at the right angle with the right lighting at some point during this pre-draft process where we're like, whoa, Bryce Sensabaugh, ripped.
Yeah.
Guy's been doing some yoga. I think he's got good length. I think he's strong. I think he has the kind of frame that holds up under an NBA context. So I'm really high on him. I think this is a guy, when we look back, just go, man, I think we kind of overthought it a little bit.
There's a range in this draft that I think we're starting to see it now with the modern NBA. I think teams are finally starting to hunt shooting in the draft. Like, if you go back in the history, you'll find plenty of college shooters that were elite floor spacers that just went later. Like, it wasn't prioritized. And I think now you're starting to see that there's a desire to go target these guys earlier on. And that's why Jordan Hawkins continues to make buzz as a guy that's climbing up boards, especially with this tournament run. And I think Sensabaugh is the next guy in line that could really impress some people and make some noise, like you're saying, throughout the pre-draft process for Sensabaugh is going to be his bread and butter, because he's going to get in a gym by himself. He's going to shoot the lights out. If he tests well, if there's good intel, he's going to be a guy that climbs a bunch. Like,
put him in a 3-on-3 in a workout.
He might be a guy you don't want to go play against because he'll make you look silly even if you defend his lights out, because he is a tough shot maker. And I've had him around 20. I'm revamping my whole board right now when I'm doing all these finals breakdowns on YouTube, and Sensabaugh is coming up on my list. I won't be shocked if I start moving him up again. And I've kind of been his harshest critic throughout the year, just because I'm still looking for the versatility. But I think you get to a point where it's like the shot making is ridiculous. He was efficient. He's got good size. He's around 6'6", and he's a load to deal with because he knows how to use his body. He's smooth, and he's shown that he can be a tough shot maker, which I have always said I believe that is a skill. So Sensabaugh is another one that if you're looking for guys that could get up into the lottery or late lottery or even higher, or maybe that's a guy you want to target when you get right outside the lottery, I think he'll be in that conversation for sure.
And I did a piece on him at noceilingsnba.com. You could search it up, just more, Bryce Sensabaugh in the search bar, and you'll find it. And I truly believe that he has the potential to be the evolutionary DeMar DeRozan. It's scary how closely
That makes sense.
I mean, it's scary at how close their movements on the court, how scary they are. Except he shoots threes. Now, DeMar is significantly more athletic throughout his career, but he didn't have the aspect of his game to go outside into the mid range, even to this day, like Sensabaugh does. So, I think he could pass. I know the assist numbers aren't terrific, but he made some passes where I was like, whoa, like that's some high level stuff, like live dribble, weak side hits. That I was like, hey man, NBA spacing, NBA shooters, this dude's going to be able to leverage that. And I think he's just so skilled. So I'm in. There's stuff that he's got to improve. The defense got to get better. But I think when we look at a league that's just offense right now, he's one of the safest players that we can look at in that lottery range. So I've had him at, I think I've had him as high as 7. I had him there for a while. I may ultimately, when I re-watch him, bring him back there. But right now I have him in that 7 to 9 range. I have him at about 9 because, Cam is just a monster truck on a basketball court. So,
but you also get, Corey, like the last thing I want to say is like, you're looking at the Tankathon projections right now. And like, I get to like New Orleans and I'm like, okay, that's where that conversation could even get serious, is like, okay, we get since all these teams, all scouts, everyone, evaluators, even us, we're looking for guys like, what is their NBA skill? And Sensabaugh's skill, his elite skill right now, is something that is really, really wanted and desired in the NBA, because it is a league right now where it is just pummeling in offense. Like, you are trying to put points up on the board quickly, and teams are putting up crazy production. So, like, New Orleans has a lot of defensive talent on the team. If they get Sensabaugh, where they're just like, okay, we got a microwave bucket getter right in the rotation. OKC's next. Maybe they're looking for another boost in their wings. Orlando, even at 11. If Orlando's like, hey, we take the swing at 5 and we get Sensabaugh, who's just coming in and getting buckets. There's a lot of teams that make sense, like a lot. Yeah. And I know every Laker fan's going to be circling the wagons with, if he was there at 16, they'd be like, oh, we need this guy. It's like, yeah. LeBron would like to be throwing catch and shoot opportunities to Sensabaugh.
That would be nice. That would be nice. Let's take a quick break and then we'll get into some more questions. All right. Perceptive Thoughts at Maverick2190 asks, best two-way wing available that is not projected to go in the top 5.
Best two-way wing.
I'm going to throw it out to you.
Okay. I'm gonna not do my obvious one, so you go ahead. Start it off.
All right. I'm gonna throw out Colby Jones to you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely love him. I just finished, if you're listening to this, you haven't checked out YouTube, I just finished his finals dive, which basically, if you're not familiar with those, I basically go through the entire year of, the highs and try to showcase everyone, like the highs of playmaking, offense, defense. And I went into that video. I already loved Colby Jones. I finished that entire season dive, and I was like, oh my gosh, I love this kid. He just knows how to play. I know there's a popular pro comp going around with Josh Hart for Colby Jones. And I do agree with that, but I still think Colby has a lot more offensive bag to offer early on.
He comped himself when Albert and I did our breakdown with him. Yes. He comped himself to Malcolm Brogdon.
And I like that one. That one kind of makes a little bit more sense to me. I think there's some special stuff defensively too. I think he's just a gamer on that side of the ball. I think he is a very smart player. Offensively, I mean, that guy just does it all. Like, they put him in post-up opportunities. He's got great footwork. He has fadeaways. He's got a nice little baby hook. Like, he plays bigger than he is. I think he's going to be like 6'5", 6'6" at the combine. I love Corey. I haven't talked to you about him much, but I love in transition how good he is of getting a pass and just immediately knowing how to shift direction. And defenders look ridiculous because he knows, oh, this guy's momentum is going to come this way. I just cross real quick. And yet he gets so many easy layups because it's just anticipation and feel. And I just absolutely love the way he plays the game. So I'm humongously a big fan.
And shout out to you because you called him out, I think, in the summer.
Yeah, I just watched him and I was like, if the shot comes around, this is a guy. I was like, this is a legit guy. And I was like, but the shot's got to come around. And then early in the year, he started hitting threes, and I was like, uh-oh, we're in a dangerous world. Like Jaws swimming around the ocean. And it's like, oh, gosh, here we go.
And if you want to talk about two-way wings, right, I posted this on Twitter. For guys who have a usage over 20, played 15 or more games, had an effective field goal percentage over 57, true shooting percentage over 59, assist percentage over 20, block percentage over 1.5, steal percentage over 2, 3-point attempts per 100, 5, that played for a high major. There are 5 guys since 2008. Tyrese Halliburton, James Harden, Lonzo Ball, Derek White, and Colby Jones. That is a very good list to be on. So when I look at that as how much this guy filled up every aspect of the box score, that's what you want to do. When we talk about a two-way wing, we want to talk about guys who impact everywhere on the court, right? That's Colby Jones. We've talked about it. This is a guy that if he went in the lottery, neither of us would be like, this team's reaching. Because this is when we look back, I would bet a lot of money that he is going to be one of the 14 best players from this draft. He might not have the highest upside, but we mistake upside sometimes because what is the ups? Like, there's always untapped potential with guys who have this safe floor. They don't just stop getting better because they're already good. Jalen Williams is showing that this year. Mikal Bridges is showing that this year. Colby Jones still has a high upside with the safety that he's going to be one of the best connected two-way pieces around, in this class.
This could be the J-Dub. And now that you brought it up, I mean, friend of the program, this could be the Jalen Williams, I think, of this class. And it's just because, like, he has a game that there's so much that's going to help out at the next level. There's so much that the important part about these guys that are getting drafted, when you have so much, like, areas of your game that can be impactful at the next level, I think that gets overlooked because that's also, like, these guys are going to try to lean on what they can do on a basketball court when they're struggling as a rookie, because all these guys are. But if you could do a lot of different stuff, then you're like, okay, tonight I'm going to do it on the defensive side of the ball, or my playmaking, or creating for others. And I think he just offers a ton of stuff. And I would not be shocked if he's in the lottery. If he gets drafted in the lottery, I would not be shocked. I think he's going to probably have great intel. I think he's going to probably have great workouts, great interviews. I think teams are going to fall in love with him. And and he's stocky. He's big boy.
He's strong. Man, I was on the court during warmups watching him shoot around, and he didn't have his jersey on. He had like an Under Armour compression tank top, and I was like, yo, he's brolic. His shoulders are absolutely massive. And as far as like the intel, I mean, NBA teams, if you're listening, I spent some time with him. Chopped it up with him. So if you want some, I got it. Let's move on to the next question. At Stack of Bricks 44, great handle. Who will be the better defender, Walker or Hendricks?
Oh gosh, that's a great one. Shout out to all these handles, by the way. Just really proud of the people on the line.
It's Jarris Walker for me.
I think it's Jarris for me. There's been some people saying, oh, he's really heavy-footed. I'm like, well, he's also 240, 6'8". Looks like the Hulk. So I hope he's got some bit of heavy feet. But I also think he's a dancing bear out there.
He's agile, man.
Yeah. And I think that'll all improve. He'll get the timing down. But I also think we saw in the tournament even what he can do when it comes to anticipation and reacting for help side or weak side blocks. And recovering. I think he's got great instincts. I really, really love his ability as a defender. I think Taylor's taken fantastic strides throughout the
Mm-hmm.
year when it comes to defensive awareness. His shot blocking is really, really special. The beginning of the year, he was very stiff when it came to like switching on to smaller guards, trying to keep up. Then it's gotten way, way better by the end of the year. I was shocked. So they're both really special talents, and I both think they're going to be top 10 picks.
Yeah, for sure. And also going back to an earlier question where I gave you the hypothetical that Dallas moves up to 4.
Yeah.
The answer is Jarris Walker.
Yes, it is.
Quickly on Taylor. I love Taylor Hendricks. I saw him live about a month ago with Nathan. We went to Temple, and he was really impressive. Every aspect of his game, all his strengths, they looked like legit strength. He's an NBA player. He's going to be a fantastic defender. He's looked really good moving on the perimeter, but I do think that he just doesn't have that same kind of strength to level up. Like I think Jarris is going to be the kind of Swiss Army knife that's going to be able to even play small ball 5 legitimately. Like I was watching one of the Celtics games where they're playing the Sixers and Joel Embiid, and Rob Williams was out, shocker, and
too soon.
They were starting the game basically just like Blake and Grant Williams were just like one-on-one with him on the block in the post and just living with it. Like Jarris Walker has that kind of strength. Like it's not ideal. You don't necessarily want that to be the case, but I think that's kind of that he's going to be that kind of guy where you can trust him to eventually take those kind of assignments where it's like, all right, we're stuck, but we have this massive Swiss Army knife defender that could do a little bit of everything. And I think he's just more versatile in how he can defend every single position, where Taylor, I think, gets stuck. Like his I think he needs to do some yoga. His hips are a little tight. And when he gets like if he's in a drop and he gets caught flat, it's so hard for him to recover. At the college level, he does have the length to recover and get a hand on it. But I think at the NBA level, like, it's not a guard from Tulane that's blowing by you. It's with some extra space. It's, I don't know, Russell Westbrook or whoever is fast now, De'Aaron Fox.
Whoever's fast.
So, but he's really great and he's long and, as a shooter, terrific. All right. This one's going to be a doozy. So are we ready?
Yeah, ready.
DJ Tobias at Cabin Gel Stan.
Cabin Gelly stand.
Cabin
Gelly.
It didn't make sense that was going to be what it was until I saw Stan was the last word. Okay. Who is the real Nick Smith? The high school version where he was a consensus top 5 pick, or is he the subpar version at Arkansas? How much credit do you give him not shutting down midseason due to injury like other prospects in the past? Well, for one, I give him a ton of credit for not shutting it down.
I give him a ton of credit.
That shows competitiveness. It shows being a great teammate. So all the credit, it shows him trying to fight through adversity. That's all positive signs that you absolutely love to see, right? As far as who is the real Nick Smith, the high school one who is a consensus top 5 pick, or the subpar version, I think it's probably somewhere in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
I know.
Which sounds like we're cheating, but I think that's a legit answer.
Yeah, I mean, I had him at 6 on my board coming into the year, but I had a lot of questions about that. And we did on the Draft Ag Pod, we did an episode on him on his high school tape. And I just didn't see the point guard stuff. And I think that was a big selling point for him as a potential top 5 pick. I was always like, this dude's a scorer first. And there's nothing wrong with that. But like, if you think that he's going to come in and be this guy who makes plays and stuff, I think, you're going to be a little bit disappointed. I think what he struggled with, some of the intel I've gotten, is that he's still trying to figure out like how to mesh the two together. He wants to be on the ball. That's like what he's trying to prove. And because he was struggling, he felt like he needed to prove that he was capable of being that on ball guy. And coming into SEC play, being really young, coming off an injury, he was pressing. He was trying too hard to prove that he was that guy. And it ended up making him look like a guy that we all have a lot of questions about. Because the version that we saw at Arkansas is not a good player, not an effective player. And the one thing that I think is definitely going to translate at the next level, his shooting, he wasn't hitting shots. Now, I'm not concerned about his shooting. I think he's got a beautiful stroke. I'm a form guy. You and I are probably the last guys in on Jurisic on the No Ceilings team still because we're, we like his form and we think he's going to shoot it eventually. But I think it's somewhere in the middle. I think like his high end outcome, where I think a lot of people comped him to like Bradley Beal coming into the year. I think his high end outcome is probably closer to Tyler Hero. And, that's a guy that there is definitely valuable in a playoff setting, but there's also questions about, are you going to be targeted on the other end? Like what happens if you don't have it going? So I still think that there is a role, and if he lands in the right spot, he's going to really pay off his value. But if you reach for him and you take him too early, hoping he's the top 5 guy, I have a little bit of concern based on some of the other guys that are out there and available.
I'm right there with you. This is all the preseason buzz has now become questions. It's just a laundry list of questions. And I've even talked to a scout. I was just kind of asking about the general concept of this, because there's a lot of guys in this class that I think this is a big storyline where are you going off of this year or are you going off of what you saw before this season? Nick Smith's right at the top. Derek Lively kind of reinvented his stock in the second half of the season. I think now he's trending in the right direction, but Smith is the big one where you're going to have to, I know I asked the scout, I was just like, are you going off of 1 year or are you going to have to go off of what you saw before? And he pretty much just talked to me. He's just like, it's terrifying if it's 1 year, but then you got to go back to what did you evaluate when he was in high school? And is this the system? Is this, injuries with Nick Smith? Is it just him trying to get comfortable where he just never could? And I think a lot of scouts will go back to believing in what they saw before this year. It comes into intel. Like, is this a hard worker? Is this a good kid? Is he going to be passionate and battle through it? But I'm right there with you. I think coming into the year, a lot of people thought he was going to be the next point guard after Scoot. And throughout the year, I just never seemed to see okay, this is give him the ball all night and he's running the offense. And you were spot on at the beginning of the year, Corey. You were like, he's going to be more of an off-ball guy. I was like, wow, really? And then the more you watched all year, I was like, yeah. And Tyler Hero is the one that really does come to my mind. And that's not a bad thing. I mean, Tyler Hero gets force-fed Miami. He has great success. They run him in a lot of, on-ball action. So maybe that's Nick Smith's specialty. But the shot doesn't worry me. I think he's going to be a fine shooter. I think his head was spinning all year. And that's tough when you're buying into the preseason hype. You can't get healthy. So then when you come back, you're trying to light the world on fire to catch up. And he's just got to get his stuff together. I would be shocked if he was top 10 right now, because I think there's just too much film that people are going to look at. But I also wouldn't be shocked if he goes and lights the world on fire in these workouts. And then scouts have a really difficult decision where it's like, well, which one are we believing? And all it takes is he goes and works out a private workout for some team. And it's like, well, Nick Smith went 88 for 100 from 3-point range. And then it's like, okay, maybe they're buying it. But he's a wild
All it takes is one. All it takes is one.
All it takes is one.
All it takes is one. Listen, on Twitter, I said that we had a very special guest that was going to be recording with us. It's not, unfortunately. He's always special in my heart, but it's not the conductor of chaos. You get that?
No, it's not. I had to pinch it. Unbelievable.
We have coming in off the bench. We got my guy, Pee Wee the Plug, in the building. P, what's going on, man?
My guys, what's going on, man? I'm a little under the weather, but I'm still here. Here.
Look, this is the flu game.
Yeah, flu game city. Here we go.
Yeah. Hopefully it's not the flu. Hopefully it's just a little cold. That's not. It's the cold game. Hopefully it's not the flu.
It's the cold game. We're definitely crossing our fingers for that. But we're doing a little Q&A here. Let's get on to the next question. It's a good one. At second worst tweeter, which another great handle.
Handles have been amazing.
How would you compare Jabari Smith and Brandon Miller as prospects if they were in the same draft? Which would you be higher? Which would you have higher on your board? So P, how would you compare Jabari and Brandon Miller, and who would you have higher on your board if they were in the same draft?
I mean, I guess the size and the shooting is the first thing that gets people going with this conversation. For me, I would take Brandon Miller. I more so like guys that have a little bit more to their offensive game. I think he puts the ball on the floor more. He's not, Kevin Durant or anything like that, but he can get his own in certain stretches. And I think for me, that's a little bit more. And he's not as stiff. Jabari is a little bit stiff for me. A little bit slower. I think Brandon is a little bit more fluid. It's definitely tough coming off the tournament he just had. Jabari was out of the gate on fire, and I don't remember him having as tough of a NCAA tournament. I can't think of it on the top of my brain, but I don't remember seeing him struggle as bad. But I think all in all, I would take Brandon Miller. And I think it's also something about him coming from Nate Oates' offense that will translate well to the NBA. Nate Oates is he's out of this world and so far advanced as far as the offensive side of the basketball. And I think that's going to be super, super beneficial for Brandon Miller coming into the league. But overall, yeah, give me Brandon Miller. I think Jabari is going to be good, though. I think, Twitter and the NBA world is so fast. They want everything to happen from day one. I'm still a Jabari believer. But give me Brandon Miller. Give me Brandon Miller.
So Brandon Miller against Florida, not Brandon Miller, Jabari in the last game against Florida shot 3 for 16. And that was a big thing on Twitter. He's 1 for 8 from 3, 3 for 6 from the line. He did grab 15 boards and had 4 assists and 3 blocks. So he did fill it up in other avenues. And that's something that Brandon Miller does too. That's what I love about Brandon Miller. Like, even when he doesn't have it going, like, he's crashing the boards. He's making plays for his teammates. I would also take Brandon Miller. I know you and I had him top 5 at the beginning of the year. We did a podcast combo, and we did like a mock draft in the preseason. I think you took Brandon Miller at maybe 3 or 4, possibly.
He was always
depending on. Yeah. So we've been on that bandwagon. For me, the more interesting comp for Jabari is Taylor Hendricks, because I've always looked at Jabari, like, when I remember throwing it in the No Ceilings group chat last year, I was like, yo, like, who does Jabari remind you of? And I was like, I can't pinpoint one guy, but the one guy who I do think he reminds me of a little bit, he just has a 3-point shot, is like Taj Gibson. Because he's like a little stiff. He does the right things. He's going to be a winning player, but he can't really create a lot. And he's going to be a really good player, but I don't think he's got like the same kind of shake and handle and like perimeter ability that Brandon Miller had. But Taylor Hendricks, on the other hand, he's a 3-and-D guy who plays the 4, probably a little bit undersized to play the 5. So he reminds me more of Jabari than Brandon Miller does, even though I kind of understand where I'm at. Rucker, how would you compare the two, and who would you have had higher on the board?
I mean, I feel like I'm at home literally with you guys, but having the Brandon Miller love here is really special to me. I love Brandon Miller. I would have had him above Jabari, and I think the world of Jabari. I think he's going to be really, really dang good. Also, comparing him to Taj Gibson, who potentially has been playing like 35 years in the NBA, is always a good sign. So Jabari's going to be great. I think we're already starting to see it to close the regular season with the Rockets. I love Rockets fans. I love draft fans. They all want their guys to be as good as possible to start off. But Miller is just special, man. I really do think he's got some star upside. I think he's got a lot in his bag right now that I think a lot of people think he's just this lethal outside shooter. And it's like, no, he's got playmaking vision. He's got the handles. And at that size, I think he's going to be dangerous at the next level. So I'm a big Brandon Miller believer, and I would have had him above Jabari for sure.
Yeah, and Brandon Miller's also got that mid-range game that he hasn't shown off this year, because that's not how Alabama played, but that was how he got buckets in high school and AAU. So I think I think he's like got true 3-level scoring potential in the league. I think he's a home run prospect. All right. Alex Magic he asks, best fit for Jalen Hood Schifino.
Woo.
That's a
Pete,
tough
what
question.
range do you have? What range do you have, Jalen?
Jalen is probably what early teen, 12, 11 for me.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It just
Yeah, I
depends
think
on the
that's
day. You know what I mean? The way college basketball has been, some days I'm like, there was nights where I'm like, man, Jalen Hood-Schifino is the second best guard in this class, outside of
yeah.
Scoot. Then it was nice where I'm like, man, this Anthony Black dude could really hoop. Then it's nice where it's like,
Mhm.
man, don't sleep on Cason Wallace. He's not the best, but he just does nothing wrong, and that's a great thing to have in the NBA. So like I said, it just depends on the night. But yeah, I would say right outside of the top 10, to the early teens at the latest, like the 14, 13, or something like that. I love Jalen Hood-Schifino. The best fit, man, what is the best fit? Y'all talk me into something, because I think there's no way that the Spurs draft a guy like Jalen Hood-Schifino. They'll draft way too early.
Mhm.
Maybe Toronto, depending on where they land. But then
That's who.
also
That's
That's what I
who
was
I
gonna
was gonna
say.
say.
okay.
Man, I'd like him in
Yeah.
Toronto. Woo.
I mean, look, Fred VanVleet. I mean, I think there's a good chance he looks elsewhere, right, in free agency.
Mhm.
I mean, I think Toronto might have a chance to re-sign him, but I think he's going to go to whoever gives him probably the biggest bag, because it's probably his last big contract. And I don't know how much Toronto wants to commit to him in that regard. So he steps in. I think that, Toronto needs like a perimeter shot creator like him, a guy who at least has that off the bounce ability. He's also a guy that I think Masai would like, because while he might not be 6'8", 6'9", like the guys he really, really likes, he's still 6'5", 6'6" as a point guard. So he still lets you play big as kind of a guy who could really pass the ball and score. I love him there. I also think Dallas, if they keep their pick, is a spot that he could do. He wouldn't have pressure to be great right away, but if they lose Kyrie, he's a guy that can kind of come in and handle the ball a little bit, make some spot up shots, so he doesn't have to, he can ease his way in as an NBA 3-point shooter. But ultimately, like, I think he fits a lot of places. I think you could put him in Washington. I think he's one of these guys. His game it could kind of mesh almost in any of the spots that he's, kind of projected to go to.
I want to see
right.
what Portland does too.
Mm,
Portland is going
yeah.
to be very,
Yeah,
very interesting.
I mean, let's see how far they're like a half a game ahead of Orlando right now.
Oof.
That's really so they can get to the top 5. They're not going to be able to catch Charlotte. Charlotte's they're 8 games ahead of Charlotte. So, but they could catch Orlando. And if Dame gets shut down, top 5 pick, I mean, you could easily see them jump up and get one of those top 3 guys, and then all of a sudden,
Now, if that happens, yeah, they off the table.
like
They got to trade Dame though, man. They got to trade Dame. I'm
They gotta do
sorry.
something with Dame. I need him. I'm sorry, Blazers fans. I need him out of there.
Yeah. But I mean, look, what if they get the first pick and you get Victor, you can make an argument that, like, with the way that Dame has played this year, and if Victor is the dude that we think he is, they make some move on the fringes. They got a lot of young talent they could trade. Like, you could make an argument that they're right back in the mix.
Oh, for sure. As long as you have Dame in
but
the mix.
But that's also probably a pipe dream of them landing Victor, and they probably got to trade him.
What about Chicago, your Bulls?
Well, I mean, if the Bulls they move up into the top 4, I'll be very excited about
I forgot. They don't
that.
even. Y'all don't even have, man. Yeah,
It's got to be
But,
one,
okay.
right? It's got to be
But
one for
here
them.
is-
Hey, they won the Derrick Rose year. They had like 2%.
No, it's-
so they can't rule on
they have
anything.
to. It's top 4 protected, so they can move into the top 4, and they would keep their pick. But here's the thing. Here's the interesting part. So if Portland doesn't want to trade Dame, and they do want to build around him, they need to trade picks, right? The Bulls have their protected pick. It's lottery protected through 2028. So they can't trade a pick until they convey the pick to the Bulls. So here's where it gets interesting. I believe now that they have the pick from New York, from the Josh Hart trade.
Okay.
So there is, if they want to make a trade for a future pick, they have had conversations, and what they would need to do is make a deal with Chicago. And the idea would be Chicago says the restrictions of the pick are off the table. You give us that New York pick. So if they want to have the ability to trade a pick, they have to make a deal like that with Chicago to be able to do it. That the Bulls kind of are holding them hostage. So it's complicated, but there's a weird world where all of a sudden the Bulls end up with like the 20 to 25th pick based on whatever New York does to end the season. So we'll see how that plays out. All right. Let's see. Next question. Should the recent slump of Brandon Miller scare you from drafting him top 3? I think for all of us, the answer is no. I mean,
Not
he's
at
dealing
all.
with a groin. He's dealing with a groin injury. I mean, it's 3-game sample. He killed it for most of the year, lit the net on fire. Variance, like the way, honestly, one of the reasons why I've been so certain that Brandon Miller is going to be a killer in the league is because I see dudes like Jordan Nwora having 25-point quarters. Mikal Bridges looks like he is, he would have been the best wing in the league if you just implanted him in, 7 years ago. Like, Brandon Miller is going to be just fine. I'm not worried about that 3-game sample.
The question, has there ever been a player who was affected by the tournament in a negative way or even a positive way? I think when we get this far in the season, you may have a guy that may draw a little interest. The arrow may go up, but there's nothing where a guy was looked at as a non-lottery pick and then he had a tournament and now everybody's like, oh, he's top 10. Is that when is that happen?
I'm trying to think back to the year the Bulls drafted Tyrus Thomas. Like, I don't remember where he was at in the mocks before that tournament run.
That's a good one, though. That is a very good one.
But he jumped. I know his stock went crazy off that run.
And that was what, almost, what year was that? This is LaMarcus
07?
Aldridge. Right, so we're talking
06?
almost 2 decades ago. So it's very rare. I never really judge anybody by the tournament that much.
Right.
It may say something where it's like, oh, another note to add, but I've never looked at somebody where, like, even in a good way, like when somebody's killing, it's not like, oh, Jalen Suggs. I didn't look at him and was like, oh my gosh, this guy is the #1 pick all of a sudden. It was just cool.
Yeah.
You like it. Like I said, you may jot down some extra notes from it. They get more games to play, but I've never seen anyone where I'm like, I'm just writing somebody totally off, or I'm convinced in at most you play 6 games in a tournament, and it's just like, this is the guy. Yeah. So nah.
No, yeah, it's just like, enjoy the ride, enjoy the basketball. If a prospect struggles, what else are they doing? And like I said, Brandon Miller was hitting the boards. He was doing other things. It's not just like he was just a cold body out there. Don't overthink it.
Tough circumstances too. The whole bodyguards and outside of the hotel room with the death threats, the groin, like you said, it's very, very, very weird situation for him.
For sure. All right, Lenny Parmacini at 207 Celtics. Those are your Celtics, Rucker. Asks, which prospects do you see benefiting the most from combine scrimmages, and who are some potential risers from measurements and athletic testing?
Scrimmages. Boy.
Scrimmages.
It's always tough because you got to project who's going to play.
Yeah, that's always the toughest thing.
Yeah. Do you think there's a chance that Kobe Buffkin plays in the scrimmage? and
No.
uses it as an opportunity
No.
to get himself in the lottery like Jalen Williams did last year?
I don't think he has to. I think he's going to get up there. That's my hot take.
Okay.
I think he's going to have some good workouts. I also think Kobe Buffkin might be a guy that no agent wants to send his client to go play with Kobe Buffkin. Who could play at the scrimmages? Oh, go ahead, Pete.
We a few years ago we went to the combine, and this is the year where Ja was coming in, and you know who really stood out? He stood out. So it was Nicholas Claxton put on a show.
Mm.
Yes.
Nicholas Claxton put on a show. So I just went to y'all's site just to give me a clear, and I scrolled all the way at the bottom. Like I'm going deep. Like Andre Jackson from UConn is the type of guy who was like, oh, who is this? I don't think like Kobe Buffkin is too high. I feel like the more the years go on, the less those guys play. I'm looking at Jalen Williams, Mike Miles Jr.,
That's who. Yeah,
Deron
Mike
Holmes.
Miles, the guy.
Yeah,
He would
I'm looking
kill
at
in
those
that.
guys.
Yeah, I think Mike Miles. Andre Jackson's a good one too because he's going to be a madman.
Yes,
Like I was at the Big East tournament a couple weeks
Lucky.
ago, and I was like, "Yo, this dude." First of all, being a New York guy, I can't even tell you. Like, I've been to the Garden 100 times for however many events. I can't
Humble
even
brag.
like.
That was a nice
I
little humble
can't.
brag.
Well, yeah, I'm from. It's home arena. I'm not bragging about all the times I went to the Nassau Coliseum. It's just so humbling getting to cover events at Madison Square Garden. Like, we get credentials to go cover these games at all of these places, but doing it at Madison Square Garden, being a kid who was born and raised in New York, going to games there my whole life, like I still like every time I think of it when I'm there, I'm just like, I can't believe like, did they mean to give me this? Like, like you think of the guys who have, covered games there. I mean, that's like Mike Breen's on the mic there every night. You know what I mean? And like we get to sit in these seats. That's one of the coolest things that has happened to me like since I've been covering basketball. So, and it's not possible without one, the hard work, everybody at No Ceilings, and then two, everybody who supports the work that we do, that they look at us and like, yeah, come on in. So getting to watch Andre Jackson in that context was really cool. And he was an absolute fucking madman everywhere on the floor, making passes, dunking, getting after it defensively. Like, maybe shot needs a little work. But
definitely.
But other than that, he's a lot of fun to. He's gonna get in a workout or in front of a team, and they're gonna be like, "This dude is a fucking psychopath, and he could play on my team any day." So
Miami Heat.
He could
Miami Heat would love him.
He's a game wrecker. I love him.
Yeah, 100%. And speaking of which, Koji, Odd Job Koji, asks
unbelievable. Sorry,
notable sleepers that nobody's talking about.
Now, before you guys answer this, because you guys are the draft experts, I'm going to pose this question on top of his question.
Okay, we love this, Pete. Appreciate it.
In 2023, where you have No Ceilings, you have the Boxing One, shout out to Coach Spins, you have Raphael Barlow, the Draft Junkies.
Shout out Raphael.
Is there such thing as a sleeper? Who is a sleeper? Because I ask myself that because I'm on y'all's site daily. I follow those guys. I'm watching the YouTube, and I don't think that there's a such thing as a sleeper if you're somewhat. I like y'all go 10 times harder than me. I'm just like I just love basketball, so I'm in the know. But like I don't know Jalen Williams percentages going to his left. That's what y'all know. I get that information from y'all. So, but it's just like, what's the kid with the long last name? I just seen them.
Pajemski?
Yes. Y'all have been talking about him.
Say him. Yeah.
Y'all have talked about him for so long. He's no longer a sleeper to me. He's not a sleeper.
Yeah. He's a sleeper in the like casual. The draft is coming up. This kid gets taken with the 37th pick. Who the hell is this kid with the name I can't pronounce?
Okay.
But you're right. For the people that are listening to this podcast, there are very few sleepers that at least haven't been mentioned on a podcast, in an article, in passing, right? But to answer this question, and it's hard because it's like some of the sleepers, it's like they're probably not coming out this year. But if they did, like a guy like Kobe Johnson from USC for me is like where my mind went immediately. He's Jalen Johnson's brother. He's a guy that I think if he tested the waters, he could be a guy that teams I think could be interested in because he's like 6'7", unbelievable defender, great passer, connective piece. The shot is kind of there, but you need to like imagine it a little bit, like it needs some seasoning. That's kind of the, like at this point, it's like he's the guy I would mention as a sleeper, but at the same time, it's not like nobody's talked about him, and he might not come out this year. So, like you said, it's hard. It's really hard, but you talk to some of the draft deeper guys, they might have somebody who's like 120th on their top 200, and Rucker and I are like, I guess we got to do top 58s for this draft.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. I used to think of myself as somebody who knew the draft stuff, and then y'all created no ceilings, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not what I once thought I was.
We do it to help you,
No,
Pete.
but-
We try to cut out time from your life.
Man, I appreciate it so much.
much.
I appreciate it so much, more than y'all will ever know.
Let me tell you something though. Your perspective, I think, is so valuable because one, you're in the know. You might not, grind on it daily because, you have an NBA show. But one of the things that I think is really important, and which is why every year I have one of my friends who's not like in the media, doesn't give a shit about the draft until draft night, come on my show, and I give him a list in no particular order, and I say, go watch YouTube videos and come back with your big board in a particular order, because sometimes we're so deep into it that we want to nitpick every little thing. And sometimes, my buddy will just be like, I watched this Ben Mathurin kid. I don't know why people are mocking him at like pick 10. Like, how is this dude not like the third pick? You know what I mean? Like, it just is that perspective. It's like, what are you overthinking sometimes? So you're in the middle because I trust your opinion on draft prospects more than most people that I talk to in this space. But you also have it where it's not your pure focus. So you can kind of come at it with a clearer head. And I think that's important because when you're looking at it day after day, and at this point, like you said, there are no sleepers. There are no guys that we're necessarily unfamiliar with. It's just going back and watching the same guys in the same games and the same tape over and over. And we're going to do that ad nauseum for the next 3 months. So that perspective, I think, is really valuable.
In a casual state, though, as far as sleepers, who y'all got?
Rucker, you hit him.
I like Pajemski a lot. I think he is a sleeper. The kid can play. He's just one of those crafty guys that knows how to play the game the right way. He's got some playmaking ability. I'm trying to think who else. Trey Alexander at Creighton.
Yes. I love Naquan Tomlin.
Yes.
Naquan Tomlin.
Trey Alexander.
Kansas State guy?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
I like Adembona a lot. I think there needs to get some people on that bandwagon. That dude is a nightmare defensively. So there's 3 names right there that I think Bona could make.
I think Najee too. James Najee. I think James Najee.
Yes,
a sleeper
Najee.
Too.
Najee's a sleeper.
People know the name, but you're not seeing Najee clips getting posted very much on Twitter.
When you say people know the name, that's me. I only know the name in the position.
He doesn't, because he doesn't play a ton of minutes because he's playing, for one of the top clubs in the Euro League. And I think he's 8. Is he even 19 yet?
He's not. He's going to turn 19 in August. He's built like the Hulk. He looks like he's 25. He's 18. But he
reminds me a lot of Jalen Duren.
Yeah.
Oh, Sign me up.
Yeah.
I had a
Like he's
I had a
playing
scout.
behind Mirotic right now.
Yeah,
Right? Like am I correct? Right, Rucker?
their whole starting five is like former NBA guys.
Okay.
So he's like barely getting minutes. But I had a scout in the beginning of the year. It was like if he was going to Texas, he would be a lock for the first round. I still think he could go to the first round. Like he's just super raw, but he also like can play some crazy defense. He dunks. He tries to break the backboard every time he dunks. It's just ridiculous.
All right. We got one more questions before we get out of here. This one, and we might have got the answer today as we're recording this. The 2 Pointers podcast asks, who's somebody that would surprise you if they went to school, or the other way around if they declared instead of going back? And Khalil Ware announced that he's entering the transfer portal. He won't be testing the waters in this draft. So that's and then Tyrese Proctor also announced that he is coming back to Duke. So those are two big guys who maybe not shocking, but at least a little surprising that they didn't at least even test the waters. Somebody that would surprise me if they ended up going back.
Phillips?
Let's see.
I was gonna name him as my sleeper. I really like that guy for some reason. I just think he can be
He's
a good NBA player. Fix that jump shot.
Good. I like Phillips a lot. I think he's gonna come. I don't know if he's gonna go back to Tennessee, but I think that he might be going back to college. But I think he's gonna test. Filipowski, if he went back,
yeah, that would be a big.
I'd be surprised. I would be a little shocked, but at the same time, I could see it. Because if he's not hearing his name in the first round, he might be looking at that Duke NIL money and being like, Proctor's coming back. Let me run it back, and we can really get after it.
What about Amari Bailey?
Amari's a good one. He got hot in the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's probably the one I'm the most fascinated by if he comes back. Or he just he could go. That's a guy who should go play at the combine.
Yes,
he should go play because that could be a guy that goes and has strong games. And the Andrew Nembhard of last year, and all of a sudden it's like, oh gosh, he might be going first round again. So I feel like him. I can't figure out Derek. I feel like he's gonna declare, but I just have that chill up my spine of like, should Derek go back for one more year? But I also think he should go.
Yeah, I think he should go too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just went and rewatched all his stuff. We covered him on the last Draft Act pod. I ended up higher on him than I was, but I'm still like, man, like he could be the guy that slides like Jaden Hardy slid.
It's scary.
That everyone's like, oh, he slipped all the way to the second round. Wow.
Because I love his stuff. I went back and watched his stuff too. I liked what I saw, but I was like, oh boy, there is a world in which he doesn't have a lot of fans in front offices. Just because of injuries and stuff.
That's the price. Well, yeah, the injuries. I seen a little bit of him. I'm gonna be honest. As a guy who has watched basketball early in my life, it was tough to see a Duke team be that way. And I know it's John Shire's first year, but that was just not a good Duke team. No offense to the players or anything.
Yeah. And they turned it on at the end of the year. They started clicking a little bit. It took them a while. So I think next year is going to be a little smoother for them. Shire will have established himself. Proctor's returning. So I think next year will be a little bit better. All right. This is a big one. Alex Clutch City at Rockets UY. Thoughts on Gigi Jackson? I don't know how much Rucker and I have spoken about Gigi Jackson. So P, what do you think about?
I'm gonna let P go.
Gigi Jackson is interesting because I'm definitely a fan of go get your own shots or whatever. But the older I get, the more I prioritize, especially around the draft, is what can a player do when they're not at South Carolina shooting up all the shots. So if Gigi Jackson goes If Gigi Jackson goes 18th to the Grizzlies, how can he impact? And the Grizzlies won't have the 18th pick. I'm just talking. How can he
Yeah.
impact winning without being the number one guy? And that's where I always prospects like him I like, because who doesn't like a guy that can go get 20 on any given night? But it's like, if he's not getting 20, or if he's not put in a position to get 20, where does that lead to? And that's all I really saw was a lot a lot of shots, a lot of bad shots. Um, what about him going back to school? I know it's not happening at all. I know he's gone, but man, guys like him should really consider a second year, because I think he could be like a TJ Warren with a little bit more season and development. But I don't know, man. I just don't know how. And it's tough because you don't want to talk down on anybody, because you see stuff in every single prospect. But the NBA is about winning and coexisting next to Kevin Durant and Devin Booker's and the guys. And if you're focused on being a guy, it can go to a Kyle Kuzma type role. But even Kyle Kuzma is like, where is Kyle Kuzma most valuable? Is it to Washington, where you can just shoot up the shots? Nobody cares, though. I don't know. I don't know.
No, I'm with you. He for his development, he should go back to school, because I do think he's a guy that has a valuable skill set of go get your own shot, but it needs refining. So I still want him to be a guy who has a role where he's scoring, but I want a coach who's holding him accountable as for what kind of shot he's taking, and put in a system around other good players to see if he can play with other good players. And, the rumor is that next year is not the strongest draft class, at least up top. He was the number one guy in that class before he reclassified. So there's no reason he shouldn't be back in that range. I mean, so I've heard different things from different NBA people. I spoke to a scout at a game, and they were like, I actually think he's ahead of schedule. Like, I think he's going to get in workouts, and I don't see how he falls out of the top 10. Now, this is before he did his IG live. And his percentages were still bad, but when you look at it from the fact that he was 17, playing in the SEC at this point, you go, okay, yeah, that makes sense. And then I've talked to people that are like, wouldn't take him in the first round, because like you said, what does he do if he doesn't have the ball in his hands? Now, for me, like, I remember we were talking about in the Gigi in the summer in the group chat, and I was like, man, I've been watching his tape, and like, his motor is kind of terrible. Like, he knocks down shots, but he should be grabbing every rebound against the kids he's playing against. And it was just like all the little things where you're like, what happens when the shot's not clicking? I was out on. And I actually think his motor was better in college than it was from the stuff I saw in high school. And he showed some interesting stuff. He's so talented, but like you, while I don't think he's as bad as a passer as the numbers might have made it seem this year, he's certainly not a good passer. So, like, I want to see him leverage how he scores. I want to see him attack the rim harder and use his physical gifts. I don't know if he gets that in a developmental program. If he goes, like you said, 18th to whoever or 25th to whoever, you're investing in a project, but you're not putting all of your investment into this project. If he goes 5th, a team is going to have to, really focus on his development. But the chances of that, I think, are less and less. Like, I could see it, just the physical ability. He goes in a workout, whatever. But I think he falls out of the top 20. And at that point, like, his career could go in so many different ways that just don't work out. And I don't know. He's a tough one for me. Where are you at, Rucker?
He's becoming a tough one in this entire class because, like Pete said, we're rooting for these kids. We're not trying to ever talk down to him, but I almost think it's a blessing if he goes later, because he'll go to a team that it's like he's not going to be the guy. Like, if he gets out of the lottery, goes to Atlanta, Trae Young's not going to be like, okay, you're all of a sudden the guy. Trae's going to be like, no, I'm the guy. Like Golden State, like somewhere where they could, get some good vets around him and be like, okay, you got to learn how to impact the game without just scoring, because you're not going to be getting all these shots right away. He's so gifted. He's so talented. Like, he's one of the most talented guys in this class, but he's just got to figure out the rest of the game. And I'm like Corey, like I watched high school stuff, and it's like the motor wasn't running high. Beginning of the year, I thought defensively the motor was like overdrive. He was just so excited to be out there. He wanted to do something. And then the IG Live thing, yeah, he'll have to answer about that in interviews and everything. But talent alone, he's a top 20 guy for sure. It's just he is going to be an investment. You got to have a smart plan in place where he's going to be held accountable and got to get more efficient because the shot creation in the offensive upside is ridiculous. It's special. And I think people have been hard on him for his assist numbers. And I was like, there's playmaking stuff. That team was tough. I mean, no offense to all the South Carolina players out there or the faithful, but I think I saw him have 2 assists on 1 possession and both shots got blocked. I was just like, oh gosh, like this guy's had a rough year to play with this, but really, really talented. I won't be shocked if he goes on a war path with pre-draft workouts. I think he's going to look unbelievable against the chair.
There are a lot of teams that have multiple picks.
Yes.
So
Indiana,
Indiana's got multiple picks. Portland has multiple picks, and you can make the argument
Utah.
with that 20 that Knicks pick that they got from the Hart trade. Like they took Shaden Sharp last year as kind of like that mystery high upside guy. Maybe they go that direction with that later pick. Utah's got multiple picks. Charlotte has a late pick there, which they should not take any projects ever again after the JT Thor Ty Jones experiment, which who could have seen that going poorly. But that's kind of Brooklyn's got multiple picks. I think a team with multiple picks is where maybe a team starts going, we take one upside guy, one safer pick, almost like OKC did last year with Jalen Williams and Ousmane Dieng, where it's like this guy's gonna be a project and this guy's just gonna be fucking awesome right away. All right, this will be the last one before we get out of here. TFM at TFM Gig, and he gave like a ton of players to order, so I'm just going to pick one line for us. Otherwise, we're going to be here for another hour. But he wants us to pick an order. Okay, Jordan Hawkins, Grady Dick, and Nick Smith. Rucker, you're up.
That would be my order. Jordan Hawkins, Grady Dick, Nick Smith.
It's my order as well.
Okay. Well, that was fun.
It's my order as
well.
well.
You?
Maybe swap Grady Dick and Hawkins.
I understand that.
And the only reason Nick Smith will be at the bottom is just because I just don't know enough about him. I just don't. I like everything, but I got to get out of that mindset. I'm trying to mature. Guys like him is dangerous for me. If I was a GM, because you see it all there. But you have to do a little bit more before you just get so invested. But he's fun to watch, and I think those type of guys are dangerous because you have to worry about what guys are contributing to winning. And rocky season for him with the injuries. I hate that part. But it's something about the size and shooting with Grady Dick that intrigues me. Something about the size and the shooting. The guy that can shoot like that at 6'8", legit 6'8", you can't really think twice on that type of combination.
So with Grady Dick, and I like Grady, I think he's gonna be a good player. High floor because that size, that shooting, right? That's gonna translate. I was sick when we covered Grady on the draft deck, so Albert and Steven had filled in for me. My thing with Grady though, because some people have him like in the top in that like 5 to 10 range, and for me,
who is those? I'm sorry to interrupt. Who are those people? I haven't seen that.
There are people out there. There are people out there. There are people on the internet.
I've been waiting. I got a list of 20 names. Here we go.
This is a family show. We can only
why is this draft
talk
like
positive
that,
about people.
Why is this draft like that?
Everyone's got their own flavor. Everyone's got their own
Everyone's
preference.
got their own guys.
Oh my gosh.
But here's my thing. And look, I like Grady Dick. He's going to be good. I'd rather trade like a later pick for Doug McDermott.
Damn.
Because I think he's closer to Doug McDermott than he is to Klay Thompson. And that's kind of what people have thrown around, that he might be like kind of like Klay like. And I'm not seeing that because you're comparing him to like possibly the, a top 3 shooter of all time. And that's not for me. But Jordan Hawkins, on the other hand, now you got my attention, because Jordan Hawkins is a dude. Craziest movement shooter. Was talking to some like an agent the other day, and I was like, yeah, like Jordan Hawkins, blah blah blah, probably like a top 20 guy or whatever. He's like, you gotta start thinking bigger, top 10 potentially. And I was like, I see the vision. I was like, I see it. I see the vision for him. He is a crazy shooter. Can he create, like, people don't, I don't think people would consider him one of the best self-creators from the guard spot in this class. But when you look at how that dude runs around the basketball court and you don't think he's creating his own shot, even though he doesn't have the ball, you're crazy. He's probably one of like my 3 favorite guys to just watch. He's competitive defensively. If you told me, and this guy is got some advantages over him as far as like strength and whatnot, but if you told me like he was like bargain Desmond Bane, like in role, I can kind of see a world in which it's like one of the best shooters. And then if he doesn't reach that kind of point, like you're looking at a guy like Malik Beasley maybe, and that's valuable too on a good team.
I'm buying into that. Yeah, you got me.
It's like, it's way easier for me to see like if he doesn't hit his high end outcome, he hits his median outcome. It's easier for me to see how he's a contributor to a team than a guy like Nick Smith. Because like you said, like Nick Smith might need the ball in his hands a little bit more, or he at least feels comfortable. Like he could definitely knock down shots off the ball, but like Jordan Hawkins can knock down shots off the ball, and he's got a little bit more on ball juice than I think, people think he does. So that would be my list as well. Grady Dick's kind of the safest option. Nick Smith is the guy who has the highest upside, I think. Like if he ultimately hit his ultimate ceiling, that top 5 that they thought, that's the highest guy. But it's a good grouping. Shout out to TFM.
What are y'all? And I just saw y'all had him on the show. I haven't watched. Round of applause. Kobe Jones. Can I get some thoughts from both of you guys? I love that dude.
Yeah. Kobe was awesome. Having him, we broke down film with him, and super high feel, high IQ player. We talked about him a little bit earlier before you popped on. He is one of like 5 guys to have like filled up this statistical query that I ran since 2008 that have hit like a certain efficiency, assist percentage, defensive numbers, and it was Tyrese Halliburton, James Harden, Lonzo Ball, Derek White, and Colby Jones from high major programs. Those are the only 5 guys. So it's like, yeah, he's probably not the high upside of like Halliburton and Harden, but if you told me he's a Lonzo, Derek White type connective role player, those guys are super valuable. Like Rucker and I have talked, like if a team took him in the lottery, we would give him a round of applause on draft night for realizing that, like, all right, you might think he has a high, because he has a high floor, he might not have a high ceiling, but I think that what we've seen is like those guys continue to get better in the NBA, that have continued to get better in college, and that already have these strengths to fall back on to get them developmental reps in the league. That, like, if you don't produce, like, it doesn't matter how high your upside is, you're not going to get that chance. Like, you might not get that chance. So we love Colby Jones. We're big Colby Jones guys on this show, and I know you like him too. It's because you got a good eye.
I wanted him to be a Nick so bad until we got Josh Hart. He reminds me of Josh Hart. Obviously, it shoots a little bit better recently from I don't know, Josh Hart. Well, he came to the Knicks and he's shooting it better, but Josh Hart was shooting it crazy. I was surprised that I saw that he did tell y'all he watches Malcolm Brogdon. That was interesting. That was interesting.
Like,
that was very, very interesting.
That was one of my favorite answers that I've gotten when I've asked that question to a prospect, because to me, that kind of answer shows the type of awareness in the type of player that you could be in the NBA. whether it was me asking that question to a prospect or whether I was working on one of the ESPN videos for Schmitz when he was asking that type of question, some of these guys, they'll be like, I love watching Jimmy Butler. That's the guy I want to be like in the NBA. And it's like, my guy, Jimmy Butler is one of the best players in the league. I love that you aspire to be that, but like, what are you going to do when you're not Jimmy Butler? Like, Jimmy Butler wasn't always Jimmy Butler. He got on the floor because Jimmy Butler was the guy who was the 30th pick in the draft, 4-year guy, JUCO, like a dog. Like, you got to be that Jimmy Butler before you could be NBA Finals Jimmy Butler. Malcolm Brogdon was such a self-aware answer of like, this is the type of role I know I could execute in the league. So that to me, when I heard that, I was like, I want to clap it up for this man, because that was a very mature thing to say for a kid in college.
Last thing I'll ask.
But yep.
You can ask away, Pete.
Anything.
As long as it's Colby Jones questions, because I could talk for days about the Colby Jones.
This next one is just I'm trying to figure out who y'all guys that are outside of the lottery, like who y'all top, because the lottery is so, I know about all the guys that are lottery projected with that. I'm trying to get some inside scoops on who I need to be watching up on for like 15 to 25. And I know the draft can go so many different ways. I'm aware, but like,
yeah,
how y'all
all right,
feeling?
So
like Chris Murray, like I haven't heard anything from him in a while.
I've seen him twice. I saw him last year and this year. I think he's just gonna be a good player. Like, he's not gonna be as good as Keegan, but he is gonna be similar in how he's used, or at least how Keegan's been used as a rookie. Because I think Keegan's gonna expand his game in a way that Chris probably won't. But the ball just finds him. Like, he's smart. He makes heady plays. I like him a lot. And those are the kind of guys that I have filled up with like my 20 to 25 range. Like, that's where I have Marcus Sasser and Jaime Jaquez and Trace Jackson Davis, like guys that I'm just like, I don't care that they're old. Like, these guys are gonna, play in the NBA. And when you're getting to that range, sure, you could swing on upside, but if they really had that upside that we're swinging on, they wouldn't be getting picked at 25. They'd be getting picked at 7. So how high is their upside for a lot of these guys? So that's what my 20 to 25 is kind of filled with. But for one of those kind of upside guys, Bilal Coulibaly, who's playing with Victor, that's kind of an interesting name that if you want to have some fun, you go on, you'd be like, I like how this kid moves. Like, for me, I'm a big on movement. Like, some guys move like basketball players. Like, some guys move like they haven't been getting trained their whole life. They just move in this very specific way that is unique to hoopers. And
he would have been
like
would have been a good sleeper. I just heard about him a week ago.
Mm-hmm.
He would have been a good guy for the sleeper thing.
Yeah,
Tyler,
he's a guy
who you got?
No, Coulibaly's nice. I love Colby Jones. I'm trying to get you some wild cards. Get on the Kobe Buffkin train. City Sissoko from the G League. Nice. I just watched.
He's another guy
he's nice.
That I did the film breakdown with, and he had one of the best personalities of guys that I've talked to. Like, you could tell he's a guy that guys are going to like being around him.
He also got playmaking vision. He also he gets a little scary when he gets downhill. Like, he throws some tomahawks down. Like, he's a little nasty getting downhill. So
he'll put you on a poster.
Yeah, he's not afraid to finish with bad intentions. I like him a lot. 20 to 25. Chris Murray's definitely in that area for me.
I mean, Ruper could be there.
I like him.
I still like Max Lewis.
Yeah.
I like Sasser too. I still love Sasser. So
guys like Sasser, they just find a way to make it work in the NBA.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
That's all I got, really. I mean, I'm still that area is. I feel like I'm gonna have an entire new slate. Corey loves Filipowski. That's his guy. I think I'm warming up on him. I love TJD. I'm doing his film right now for YouTube. I love TJD. He's nasty.
Yeah,
He's crazy.
Shout out to him for going back to school, man.
Yes.
Like guys got to start being okay with going to school and just getting better and better and better, little by little by little, because it does so much. I think in the draft world, if you're not a surefire guy, at least, because if you have the money out there, I totally get being a freshman with all of the draft buzz and just going to live your dream. But if you can afford to go back, I think it does more than a lot of guys are starting to accept. And I can't believe the draft world, as far as prospects, agents, and even teams that are drafting, are still kind of not caught up on that yet. Like when Corey says, I don't care that they're old. I thought as a draft society, we were past that. When guys like Desmond Bain come in and do so that, I can't believe that we still have people like, oh,
Jalen Williams this year.
Jalen Williams. It's like we have to start getting past certain stigmas in the draft community, especially the up top guys. They're the ones that get paid for it. Y'all, no ceilings is always going to have a job because y'all doing your own thing, just breaking down the prospects. But for guys who are getting paid to hit on these guys, I can't believe that they will look at a Jaime Jaquez and say, he's 22. If it was DeAndre Williams from Memphis, who's 26, then I would understand. But 22, man. Baseball, he's a baby still in baseball terms. 22. There's 26, 27-year-old rookies. So, yeah, that's interesting.
And Mikal, what's funny?
Mikal Bridges,
when Mikal Bridges was when he was on the JJ Redick podcast, he said, like people were worried about his age, and went top 10, right? So they weren't so worried, but he was like, what do you think? I'm just going to turn 22 and stop fucking getting better at basketball? Like, like it's insane.
I was in my bedroom just today. I don't know why this was on my mind, but a guy that I really, really liked was Darius Baisley. And I think Darius Baisley's been good, but I was just sitting like, man, what if Darius Baisley went to college for a couple of years? We would probably have a different perspective on him. I kind of feel like he's in that dangerous part where with the Thunder, got lost in the shuffle because a lot of young talent was coming in. Now he's on the Suns, who have championship aspirations. This is where you can't contribute to the Suns. Now you're not playing, and now you kind of become an afterthought. I'm looking up right now. He's playing 5 minutes a game for the Suns. And if you couldn't play with the Thunder, you couldn't play with the Suns. It's like, where do you go from here? And he's too talented of a player, and he's still so young. He's 22. So it's like, imagine if Darius Baisley was in this draft class at 22 or in last year's draft class at 21 with 2-3 years of Syracuse basketball under his belt. He probably wouldn't be a lottery pick, but hell, he wasn't a lottery pick at 19. So it's like, what do you have to lose?
Yeah, you're right, man. You preaching to the choir with this. I think that it's one of those inefficiencies where, and this is why I think Memphis has been able to build their team in the way that they have. Like, sure, they hit on Ja and Jaren Jackson, and they got lucky in that regard. With Jaren Jackson, granted though, like they had to still make that pick. They still had to make the right pick there, but they are able to compete now because they got guys like Brandon Clark. They drafted Desmond Bain. They Santi Aldama. And then they got guys like LaRavia and Roddy waiting in the wings. Like, they just got these guys who just know how to play basketball, and maybe they're a little older, but like they can hoop, and you need their team. That's how you win games eventually. Like, it's not enough to just have those top two guys now. Anthony Davis and LeBron James, were, granted, they're in and out of the lineup or whatever, but those two guys were having trouble winning games until all of these trades were made, and they're still having trouble. Like, it's not enough. The whole team's got to be good now. Mm-hmm. Your 8th man, your 9th man, your 10th man, everybody's got to be able to play. So you might be drafting a guy who's an 8th man, but that's probably going to be more valuable than the guy who's, dropping 20 a game in your G League. Like, so when you say you're shifting your perspective to talk about who's contributing to winning basketball, I think that a lot of people have to do that. And I think a lot of these older guys who don't get credit for doing that are guys that are going to be undervalued and overproduce because of it.
Yeah, Memphis.
So
Memphis.
that's our.
They have it down to a T. I even credit Memphis for drafting Jaren Jackson, developing them, but I think they put him in a good situation too. They were his prototype is the scariest because it's like him, Evan Mobley, where teams want to put them at that 5 so desperately bad. But I credit Memphis for staying with Valanciunas to then going to Adams and letting him just be that 4. And now he's defensive player of the year, possibly. And same with Evan Mobley, doubling down, getting Jared Allen. You know, it's that whole unicorn thing where it's like, we have this 4, but if we put him at the 5 and he can maybe stretch the floor and he could, but I'm liking that we're kind of getting back to two front court players, power forward in the center.
Yeah.
Like the Cavs do it, Grizzlies do it. My Knicks do it with Julius Randle and Mitchell Robinson. We're kind of getting back to mid 2000s basketball where you have a traditional 4 and a 5. But no, yeah, we got to get better at encouraging guys to not rush it. Like I said, I understand everybody comes up in different ways. If I was 18 and I could have gone to the NBA, I would have went and got that bread for my mom. But hopefully I would have had the proper people around me that say, hey, the bread is going to be there. You go 2 years and play for Tom Izzo, that bread gets a little bit longer. So it's an ongoing conversation, I guess. But shout out to the NIL. They're helping.
Yes,
they're helping a lot.
Absolutely. And on your two big point, I'm going to be interested to see how the Thunder surround Chet Holmgren in the front court. You know, I know they got the other Jalen Williams. They got guys like that. I'm going to see what I'm going to be interested in their long-term vision in that other.
I wish they kept. I wish they kept Duren. Didn't they draft? We drafted Duren and we did a trade. Or did they have a chance to get Duren? I remember on draft night, I was just hoping that they got Duren. I can't.
Yeah, I think it was like you guys drafted Duren, and then OKC traded it was like something with Detroit, New York, and OKC. I remember being live on the stream, and we were like, and Woj didn't tweet out like any of the details. It was like piece by piece, and we were just like, this is insane, but this is where all these guys are going. So
yeah, I wish they would have kept Duren. And
Yeah,
Tyler, I didn't know you was you're a Celtic fan.
Yeah, whole life. But see, now I do this. I gotta be open to. I gotta root for every fan base. Except like,
how you feel about the Jaylen Brown stuff?
Stop it! Too soon. Winning heals all. Let's just get to the playoffs and win. We'll heal it all.
Hey, that's true. That's very true.
I
did not know you were a Celtic fan.
Yeah. I keep it. You know, I keep it quiet until it's postseason, and then all bets are off.
Okay, I like it.
He's quiet he's quiet online, not in the group chat. Like I won't even know. Like if you know, our guy Nick at No Ceilings is a Kings fan. Like if the Celtics are playing the Kings, it'll be like 9:00 in the morning, and Rucker will just send Nick like some meme, like ready for war tonight, and you're just like, you forget that Rucker's a fan up until that point.
I gotta be open. I root for everyone. I got Knicks faithful for No Ceilings. I gotta root for the Knicks. It's tough. I go through a lot of conflicts, emotional stress.
No, yeah, I actually hate the Celtics because I'm a Knicks fan.
It's okay. I get it.
I
division rivals.
Yeah,
but it's not even that. I just think I'm jealous. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. After you had Kyrie, Gordon Hayward, Robert Williams just pops out of nowhere into their laps. The rich just keep getting richer.
Yeah.
So it's just jealousy.
The Kyrie experience, I probably wish I could delete, but it's okay. You know, we got through it.
It worked out.
We're stronger for it. Yeah.
Yeah. And look, they made the Tatum pick. They could have taken Fultz.
True.
Yes,
like most teams would have. And I mean, shit, they could have taken Josh Jackson, like some teams would have at that time.
I wish y'all had this during that time because there are certain guys, and even before No Ceilings existed, I would always say something to Corey about certain guys, and not to really discredit people, but I think even last year I was like, "Yo, Corey, you really like Keon Johnson? I'm seeing him in the top 10
Yeah,
a
that
lot.
was
And I'm like, I don't see it. I just don't see it. And then he'll reassure me that I'm not tripping, and then everything happens the way it happened. But Josh Jackson was the same guy where I was like, no disrespect, but top 5? What? Where? Where? And sure enough, but I hope Josh Jackson's doing well wherever he is. He got a few chances in the league, but yeah, certain guys that I don't see it. I don't see it.
I
And
get
there's
it.
certain guys that popped that I was on board with, like Zach LaVine. If y'all had this podcast during that draft, I would have a lot more draft clout because I was on the Zach LaVine bandwagon so hard those days.
Now you have draft clout for sure, and for anybody who's not following P and all the stuff he's doing, make sure you do that right now. Pete, tell everybody where they can find you online.
Find me at Pee Wee the Plug, Instagram, Twitter. Find me on Through the Wire podcast Tuesdays and Saturdays. We're gearing up to do something special, so we might be, and anybody who's watching, we might be in your city soon. And yeah, man, continue to support No Ceilings. I got draft cloud because I just take everything that they say and then I use it in my draft conversations. I just copy and paste.
That's what
I'll
we
go on my
love.
group chat and be like, yo, check out this dude, man. I just and so yeah, man. And I'm hoping we get to see you guys again in Vegas and we can actually chop it up a little bit more. I know it's so
100%.
busy. Yeah. So we'll be out there again this year. We gotta actually link up outside of UNLV's arena. You know what I mean? Gotta gamble or something. But yeah, man, I'm proud of y'all. Y'all killing it.
Now you're speaking our language.
Yeah. Now we're getting somewhere. No,
I'm proud of y'all, man. I'm y'all biggest supporter, and it's good to see you guys continue to flourish and kill it because I think the draft world has been needing a No Ceilings. And there's been people, that have done their thing. Chad Ford and Schmidt, who's now with the Blazers now.
Yep.
And Chad Ford retired. So yeah, it's No Ceilings takeover, man. No Ceilings takeover. I'm happy for y'all. And let's get some more merch too for this upcoming draft. I love merch.
we got some stuff in store, and to be Tyler's with us on here so we could talk about it. I mean, I know I've mentioned it. He's mentioned it in certain places. Schmidt's a big reason that No Ceilings exists.
Yeah.
He kind of encouraged Tyler and I to link up and start something in the space. And, from there we ran with it and built out what we did. But he, in a lot of ways, we need guys like him, like you, people who are legitimately good people and supporters of good content, who don't look at every little thing out there as a competition. Like everybody could eat. Like if you see something that you mess with, like you support it. You're not like, oh, if this guy blows, that means that, I'm going to lose my spot. You just want to big up everybody, big or small. It doesn't matter how many followers the person has. Like if you see somebody that is nice with it, like you interact with everybody. And that's, to me, how it's supposed to be. And that, that's why I think we all, fuck with each other, because that's how we are too. That's how it's supposed to be. So I appreciate you, man. I know No Ceilings appreciates you big time because you've been the biggest supporter from day one. So anytime you come on here, and bless us with your wisdom, we're absolutely so appreciative of that. And it means the world. All of you guys, Through the Wire guys, like all you guys. Anytime we ask, you're like, I'm there. So big ups to you guys.
Never forget it, man. Anything y'all ever need, that goes for you, Rucker, Metcalf, Albert, everybody. I see you. What's the young lady's name? I don't want to be rude, but
Paige.
I saw
Paige. She's a star. We love her.
Yeah, y'all added her to the roster. We
Yes.
need to have women talking about basketball and hoops. They're big. There's a big avenue for them doing their thing. They need to get their respect. So I was happy to see y'all add Paige to the roster. But yeah, anytime y'all need anything, even if it's outside of being on anything I can do to help, let me know, man. Please let me know, because No Ceilings is seriously, in my opinion,
the next big thing in the basketball world. Just the aesthetic, the consistency, the output, the merch, the detail, the themes, the coloring. It's all on point, and it's just about just staying committed and staying faithful. And before you guys know it, out of there. So keep doing y'all thing, man. And thanks for having me. Thanks for always reaching out. It's a pleasure and a blessing, because when y'all become rock stars, I know I'll be able to get VIP when y'all have y'all own no ceilings draft combine. It's not even gonna be the NBA combine no more.
Hey man, don't think that we haven't talked about stuff like that already. We dream big here.
Dreams. Big dreams.
We know we're gonna execute it. All right, Rucker, tell the people where they can find you.
I'm
even
at
though
Tyler
you tell them every day.
Yeah, every day. I'm at Tyler_Rucker on Twitter, but follow me, follow the rest of the gang at No Ceilings NBA. And Pierre, thanks for coming on. Feel better, and make sure you check out Pete's stuff and Through the Wire. They're great peeps.
Yes, twice a week. You can find me at Corey Tulaba on Twitter, NBA Draft Dude on Instagram, TikTok. Follow No Ceilings NBA TikTok page. That she's killing all the socials for us. She's an absolute superstar. And again, yeah. And thank you for coming on. Just like you, anytime you need any of us, we're there whatever you need. So make sure you subscribe, share, all that good shit. And make sure you're listening to Nick tomorrow on the Deep Dives podcast on this feed. Until next time, we're out. Peace.